Hello, welcome to Pause for Faith and to this series we're doing, The Christian Faith in 100 Objects. The Christian Faith. And today, to think about the topic of theology. What is theology? What does it mean in general? What does it mean for you and me? And it's a great topic and a great word. We'll look into it and to explore that with you now. Thanks for being with me. Theology might be a bit of a scary word. You think this is about deep academic thinking, the kind of thing they do in universities. It's a thing for intellectuals. It's about writing books and giving lectures. And this is partly what theology is. At one level, theology is an academic discipline done by specialists, and it's not for everyone. But at another level, theology is simply the reflection, the thinking that every Christian does when we try to discover the meaning and the implications of our faith. Here am I as a Christian, believing and living this faith. Well, what does it mean, and how can I understand it and deepen it? And I'm not just being a Christian or living my faith, but I'm thinking about being a Christian. I'm reflecting on my faith. The word theology, it comes from two Greek words, theos, meaning God, and logos, meaning word or reason or thinking. We have lots of these words, don't we? Like biology, bios, logos. So biology is thinking about life. Theology is, to sum up, thinking about God. Thinking or speaking, because the word logos in Greek is not just thinking, it's all the way that we understand and think and reflect and speak. So all of this is theology. And in this broadest sense, it's all the thinking that anyone does about God, about faith. It's nothing to do with how intelligent we are. It's not just for academics in universities, it's all of us. It includes children asking their parents difficult questions that they can't answer. It includes you mulling things over at home when you go for a walk or when you're watching the TV. It does include intellectuals and academics. It includes ordinary saints, ordinary Christians getting on with their lives. It includes deep, heavy books propping up your table, but it involves letters that Christians have written, sermons that have been preached, blog posts, texts, messages, WhatsApp groups, diaries, autobiographies, spiritual retreat notes and journals. All of this can be theology. And you do theology. You are a theologian. You do theology whenever you think about your faith and ask questions. For me, it started, I think, like most of us as a child, me just wondering about life and the world and asking awkward questions to my dad and especially to my mum as a little 4 and 5-year-old. I began to think, just school forced me to think. I was 14, 15, studying chemistry, biology, physics, literature, reading novels and Shakespeare, hearing my physics teacher tell me that light was a wave and a particle at the same time, and being fascinated and confused by this, and reading the poetry of Yeats and Larkin and Eliot, and wandering through Camden Town Market, looking at the second-hand bookshops, finding books about philosophy and especially about Eastern religions, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, some fantastic traditions and religious and philosophical traditions from the East, and eventually discovering some amazing Christian writers in my late teenage years, books that were lying around at home or in the markets. C.S. Lewis was a great influence on me, reading the autobiography of Thomas Merton and of Bede Griffiths, reading Cardinal Newman, reading St. Augustine, and eventually the joy and the gift of being able to actually study theology properly, as it were, going to university and then to seminary and studying theology. So in general, theology is any thinking about God, anywhere, anyone, any religion. But in the Christian tradition, theology has a slightly more precise meaning, it's when we think about our Christian faith. So here am I as a Christian with this faith before me, within me, and I'm reflecting on this faith, on what God has revealed to us, we believe as Christians, and especially what he has revealed to us in his Son, Jesus Christ. So theology is not just me starting from scratch, having these deep thoughts about God wherever I am, whatever culture, whatever religion, whatever I'm thinking at the moment. For the Christian, it's a little bit more focused. It's here is this incredible gift of faith, and it's me thinking about the faith, but it's me reflecting on something that is there before me, that I've received, because I'm reflecting on this huge thing. Strange thing to say, this thing, this reality, this beauty, this truth of the Christian faith, above all, of coming to know Jesus Christ. Look, there's my splurge of ideas. Let's do a few definitions from the Christian tradition. Probably the simplest and most famous definition of theology is from St. Anselm, where he said, theology is faith seeking understanding. Faith seeking understanding. And each of the three words is important. Just let me explore them with you for a minute. First of all, faith. As I've said, theology is the search to understand more deeply the faith that we have received, the faith of the church, the faith that I'm already living. I'm not just an outsider looking in, or a scientist with this thing in front of me, picking it apart curiously in a slightly abstract way. This is my Christian faith. I'm part of it. It's part of me. And so theology presupposes faith as it's expressed above all in the Holy Scriptures, in the Bible and the Christian tradition. And it takes for granted that the person doing the thinking, the theologian, you and me, that we have faith, that I want to understand this faith more deeply. It's a gift that I love and honor and respect, and I want to go deeper. I'm not just an outsider. I'm someone who it's part of my life and it's part of my commitment. So this is important because it's not just me thinking in the abstract by my own efforts. I'm thinking about what God has shown us. This is what I believe as a Christian, that God has been speaking to us in salvation history, that he's spoken to us in his word, his logos. That's what it says in St. John's Gospel, the logos, the word made flesh. And so in some ways, I'm thinking about God's own thinking. God is inviting me not just to think, but to share in his thinking, in his understanding, through his Son, Jesus. Theology is a response. It has a foundation. And in that sense, as we understand it as Catholic Christians, theology is not just religious studies or the philosophy of religion. It's this incredible faith that God has revealed, that has been shared with us. And this is why the Bible is at the heart of theology. The biblical authors are the greatest theologians, especially the four evangelists, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, St. Paul, St. Peter, St. James, St. John, the author of the book of Revelation. The Bible and the books of the Bible are the foundation of our theology, because we always come back to God, to what God has spoken to us, his word. It's not just what we say about God, it's what God says about himself and our sharing in his own speaking and thinking. It's also why in Catholic theology it's so important to stay faithful to our core beliefs, to the Christian tradition, to the teaching of the church. I'm not just an isolated, independent thinker, making things up as I go along, or just exploring what I happen to believe personally. Theology is this adventure of the whole church. The faith is bigger than me. I'm exploring what has been revealed to me by God, to us by God, revealed in the Bible, passed on, the faith that's been passed on by each generation and that's taught today by the church. This is what I'm exploring. Just to say, clearly, there's a bit of tension here sometimes. You could put this under the heading of academic freedom. The theologian might say, my job isn't just to repeat what the Bible or the church, and this is true. But the job of the theologian is not to explore in a way that would take you away from the foundations of the faith. It's to be faithful, but to explore critically and thoughtfully and adventurously. In other words, we're not just free-floating as theologians, academics, you and me. We need roots in revelation, in the Bible, in the Christian tradition, in the teaching of the church. We need roots so that the branches can grow and expand. Faith, seeking, understanding. The second word, seeking. Theology is a search, and it's driven. It's not just to repeat the old words or to read out the Bible or the catechism. It's to deepen and explore. It's driven by a search, by wonder and curiosity. We're not just restating received truths. If your child asks you a difficult question, you don't just pick up the catechism and read out the answer to them. You need to creatively explain and engage and try and say something that will make sense to them on their terms. And it's true at every level of theology. It recognizes, theology, that each person and each generation needs to break open anew this gift of faith. So there's a continuity, there's a sameness. The heart of Christianity doesn't change from one generation to the next. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. But we need today, right now, to break it open, to appreciate it anew, to see what it means for us today. Our today is different from yesterday and last year. And each culture will find new expressions of faith and will explain and express this in new ways, and will have new questions and new insights and new situations. This is why there are different theologies in the plural. There aren't different Christian faiths. We're united in the one faith of Jesus Christ, the faith of the Bible. For us as Catholics, the faith of the Catholic Church. But there are different theologies because this faith is expressed in different languages, different traditions, different emphases. It's a lovely example of unity of faith in diversity of expression, of language, of theologies. We're united in faith in the one church, in the one teaching of the one church, but there's so much creativity in different ways of expressing that. Always new insights and new questions. It shows for you and me, I'm often saying this to the university students I work with, the importance of asking questions. Don't be afraid, really, I'd say this to you, of asking questions of your faith. Don't be embarrassed as if you're stupid or think you're a bad Catholic because you don't understand something or it's confusing or you're doubting it. We need to have a humble humility and to say, I want to try and believe and understand, but also an honest questioning and an exploring and putting our hand up and reading and studying and praying for God's guidance and talking to people that can help us and trust us. Don't hide your sincere doubts and questions, but try and explore them and deepen your faith with an open heart. 3 words: faith, seeking, understanding. The third word, understanding. We do this not just for fun, it is fun, but we do this because we want to make sense of our faith, to see what it means for our life, to see how it connects this beautiful Christian faith with the other truths of my life, with science, with love, with history, with art. We want to go deeper in our understanding so that it's not just words buzzing around here, but it forms an idea and a conviction, and it moves my heart and it inspires my imagination and it rouses me to action and to love and to charity and to social commitment and to service of others and to prayer and to worship in the liturgy and in the Mass and to studying more. So this faith seeking understanding is not just a game. It's the wonder of faith and helping me to grow and deepen my understanding. Words are never enough, but the words and the thinking of theology can express the richness and beauty of faith and draw us closer to it. You see all this variety. I've given you this picture, faith seeking understanding, and I've said it's not just academics and teachers and professors, it's all of us. You see this variety in the doctors of the church. Now, doctor, it doesn't mean in Catholic theology a medical doctor. A doctor simply means teacher, a teacher traditionally. The title Doctor of the Church is given to certain saints who are officially recognized to be great teachers, great Catholic Christian teachers, whose teachings and writings are a faithful expression of Catholic belief and are a beautiful creative contribution to theology and to Christian understanding. And, this is important, that their faithful teaching has relevance to the whole church and to us today and to every generation. It has universal lasting value and not just value for a little moment or for a small group of people or friends. These are the great theologians, the doctors of the church, the great teachers and thinkers. But great doesn't mean the brainiest or the most famous or the most books. Look at the variety of doctors we have. St. Augustine, St. Athanasius, pastoral bishops, St. Gregory and St. Leo the Great, fantastic popes, teachers, St. Albert the Great, St. Thomas Aquinas, medieval university academics, St. John of the Cross, St. Teresa of Avila, mystics, religious men and women, Carmelites, reformers, St. Catherine of Siena, the great Dominican, often called a sister, like as if she's a nun, but in fact, St. Catherine was a lay woman of the Dominican Third Order, a lay fraternity. So a Dominican, but to have a lay woman doctor as much as the men and the priests and the bishops and the popes. And one of my favourite doctors, St. Therese of Lisieux, the young Carmelite who died in her mid-20s, not an academic. She went to the convent. She stopped school, basically, when she was 15. She wrote a few letters and poems and personal writings, notes about her life, her autobiography, but such depth and wisdom and meaning and a message for the whole church, not just about her spirituality, but about the deepest realities of our faith. And I was so pleased. I remember the moment I was at World Youth Day in Paris in 1997 in the race course, Longchamp race course with Saint Pope John Paul II, when he announced that Therese would become a doctor of the church, and just the joy and the excitement to be there in France when this was announced. So the doctors of the church give us the breadth and the richness of theology. What's the object that I want to symbolize the theme of theology? I could have chosen anything. Yeah, this is very personal. Just as a symbol, I've chosen one book, right? This is my symbol of theology. Can you see that? It's a book called God Matters by Herbert McCabe, a Dominican priest. Why have I chosen this? It's personal. It's just an example of a beautiful, profound book of theology that has helped me. It was one of the first books of theology I read when I went to university to study theology and religious studies. So it opened up the world of theology to me. I've chosen it as well because I love the title, because the title, in effect, is the nature of theology. God Matters. It's a lovely pun. First of all, I think it means God matters, the matter, the stuff, the matter, the material of life, of faith, of God. So this is the stuff of God, the things of God, the things concerning God and that God cares about, the God matters, right? But secondly, it means God matters. God is important. God really matters to us today and to every generation. He has value, he has importance, and theology matters. So God matters is the stuff that we should be concerned with, the logos, the word of God, thinking about God, and it's the importance of God in our lives and the importance of theology. It's a lovely pun. And this book is a mixture of deep theological reflection and academic theology and philosophy, but it's also politics and prayer and liturgy and Mary and the saints and sermons and talks and articles. In other words, it's got breadth as well as depth. And the final reason I've chosen it is because I was lucky enough when I went to study as a layperson with the Dominicans in Oxford to be taught by Herbert McCabe after reading his book. And I would say, I think, he's the greatest theologian I've ever met. He's died now and gone to the Lord, but just what a privilege it was to be taught by someone. It was like being taught by Thomas Aquinas for me and for many others who remember Herbert with affection. You could see him thinking, creating, wondering, the intelligence, really, the brilliance of his mind, but the depth of his thinking. It wasn't just about his cleverness. It was about his insight into the heart, very often not by making statements, but by asking questions. I remember the moments when he'd ask someone, once or twice me, a question in a class or in a supervision, and the question cracked open a whole world of wonder and discovery that hadn't been there before, because I hadn't been able to see the question, and he'd been able to see the question that I needed to ask. I thank God for Herbert McCabe. I pray for him, and just one example of a book of theology and a theologian that's helped me, and I hope you can find theologians and writings and sermons and anything at all that will help you reflect on your faith. Faith, seeking, understanding, the wonder of theology, and that all of us are called to be theologians and to fall in love with theology. Great to be with you. Back tomorrow morning for another topic, and thanks for sharing this time with me.